We're not far off, October 17th. We are ramping up coverage. I bet the world's press will be here to watch Canada become the first major economy to legalize this drug for recreational purposes. Producers, or some of them, are anticipating a shortage, and some growers are carving out a niche which sales to other producers. We're joined by one grower who's followed that strategy, WeedMD CEO Keith Merker. It's great to see you.
Hi, thanks, Andrew. Thanks for having me.
So just to give the viewers a quick snapshot, you have a market cap, you're on the venture, north of about 200 million, about 216 million. Yep. And what is your focus? You've just constructed this huge new growing facility in Strathroy, Ontario, in the southwestern part of the province. So you're primarily a grower?
So fundamentally speaking, WeedMD comes from a place where we have developed one of the largest and most comprehensive grow production cultivation platforms in the industry today. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting, you mentioned at the start of the segment that we're experiencing a shortage in the space today, and that is very true. I can tell you from our experiences with not only our peers in the space from the licensed producer standpoint, but also from the distribution channels that WeedMD has, both with the provinces for the retail aspect of this business, as well as Shoppers Drug Mart, which we're a supplier to for the medical business going forward. Yeah. Everyone is scrambling for product. Everyone is getting a little bit desperate as we head towards October 17, and it's been a very interesting environment to be a part of.
Is that partly because some of the big producers have had difficulty actually producing the crop at vast scale?
Doing what we do is not easy. Doing what we do to the standards prescribed by the regulators in this country is certainly not easy. Very interestingly, I mean, the tide is about to go out on this industry in a way. We're about to hit this inflection point where we're going to find out who's been swimming naked when it comes to producing quality product en masse. Fortunately, WeedMD's in a very good position as one of the smaller companies by market cap in the space to actually prove ourselves going forward from the standpoint of producing, providing, and supplying quality product, both on the medical side and the recreational side to this country going forward.
So is there a real risk some of the licensed producers will have to turn around and tell investors, well, look, sorry, the technical challenges of ramping up have meant we couldn't produce as much pot as we hoped?
So, I mean, it is interesting. We've got licensed producers, as I said earlier, scrambling to find product, to fill their vaults, and ultimately to fulfill their commitments to the provinces right now. And they're willing to pay up to such a degree that they'll be losing vast amounts of money as they wholesale it to the provinces going forward. So fundamentally speaking, if you think about it, every gram of cannabis that's smoked in this country post-October 17 will in some way, shape, or form probably be subsidized by the good investment community in this country and others.
That's interesting. So there will be, can you tell us, you've been supplying, or you've struck deals to supply some other players. Can you tell us who you will be supplying to?
So we're not disclosing any of the details of, or the specifics thereof, of the wholesale agreements that we've put into place thus far. You know, WeedMD is distributing to the provinces for the recreational rollout in a couple of weeks.
In your own right.
Yep.
Yeah, so selling directly.
Yep, we are selling directly, and you'll be able to find our products online with the OCS, as well as in the stores in Alberta, BC, and Nova Scotia. Okay. And then, of course, we've got the medical business that we're keeping and allocating product to, because that's been the heart and soul of this company from the early beginnings, and frankly, a good margin business going forward. But ultimately, we've got excess product from which we've chosen select amounts to sell to other licensed producers to take advantage of the strong wholesale market situation today.
And but has your phone been ringing, your cell phone, with growers trying to get product?
I think it's buzzing right now. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Including some big players?
Yep.
Okay, that's very interesting angle. So talk to us about, what is your production capacity right now? What will it be? How many thousands of tons?
So WeedMD has two facilities online and licensed today, both circling around London, Ontario, so only a couple hours from here. The original one is an indoor facility in Elmer, Ontario, where we're producing about 1,200 kilos per year.
1,200, so that's really,
that's not massive.
It's just over a ton.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the expansion site is where things get really exciting.
Okay.
So it's a 14 acres of greenhouse on site today. It's a 98-acre property. We've taken over this facility. We now have 1 acre licensed and online, which gets our current production capacity to over 5 tons per year. Excitingly, we've got another 6 rooms or another 1.5 acres of greenhouse that's ready to go. We're waiting for Health Canada's approval. We'll have another 6 tons capacity at that point coming online, more than doubling our current capacity. That'll be over the next month or so. Beyond that, we've got another 9 acres in retrofit, and that will be achieved and online by end of year, which gives us, between all of this good stuff, over 50 tons capacity, real capacity, online, end of 2018.
Yeah, I said thousands of tons, of course. Nationally, we may get to thousands of tons. It's so interesting. You're in that weed belt of southwestern Ontario, around London, Ontario. So many places opening up.
There is. I mean, we're certainly not in strictly speaking, if you look down south to Niagara through to Leamington, there's a lot more glass houses producing cannabis that way. We're a little bit more on the outskirts up where we are, which we kind of like to be just on the fringe of that kind of activity.
Now, you had this deal that you wanted to do with Haiku Grounds, and you called that off. What was that deal, and why did that end?
Yeah, so back in the early spring, we landed on a potential merger transaction with Haiku.
Right.
We had tremendous respect for what they'd accomplished as a company. They brought to the WeedMD story a number of things that we lacked, to be quite frank. We're great producers and operators and cultivators. We did not at that point have a marketing strategy or a retail or a rec strategy. Haiku answered those questions for WeedMD.
Oh, but didn't seem like a fit in the end?
Well, what happened was at the 11th hour and 59th minute, the good folks at Cannabis swooped in and made a bid for Haiku.
But you got a nice bit of change out of that, didn't you?
We got a $10 million break fee out of the deal. And, you know, it set us back a little bit, to be quite frank, on the branding side. But that being said, we're rolling out with WeedMD brand on the rec side, and it's a brand that people know and love in this country. And so we're very confident going forward that, you know, it's interesting because when you think about it, we're playing a game called Cannapoli right now.
Cannapoli.
Whoever's got the cannabis is going to win. And so WeedMD just happens to have developed and be sitting on Park Place. And we're building hotels, and we're building a very fulsome production platform. And I don't know if the name behind that production platform maybe matters quite as much as some people might like to think, because if people learn to associate WeedMD with the great quality cannabis that's coming out of our facilities, then so be it, and we succeed with that.
And you do have, how many medical patients do you have roughly?
So we haven't disclosed those numbers specifically to date, but we're still sub 10,000. We are growing. That business is growing, and it is a nice high margin direct-to-patient business that is not going away for a number of reasons. I mean, not only the business aspect of that, but also importantly, these are the medical patients that need the product and that have supported WeedMD from the early going.
Now, there has been some insider selling by people in the cannabis industry lately, but we got on to Ted Dixon, CanadianInsider.com, and he told us there hasn't been much buying or selling at your shop in the past 6 months.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, we're true believers. For better or for worse, we are standing by this company. We're long-term holders. We've, you know, I've been with the company since early 2014, and we've been building and building, and I think we've created something very special, and so we're long-term believers.
Thanks very much, Keith.
Thank you.
Our guest has been the CEO of WeedMD. I think maybe we could put up that scorecard very quickly once again. Canopy, of course, has turned into the go-to stock. And over that period, anyway, weed has been trading pretty well in line with the, the marijuana ETF. It gets so confusing. Canopy stock symbol is weed, but HMMJ is the ETF and WMD is WeedMD. Okay, thanks, Keith Merker.